I'm Vas Bednar, and I host this Globe and Mail podcast, Lately.
And I'm Katrina Onstad. I'm the executive producer of Lately. And Vas, with your dulcet tones, have you ever considered sales?
Oh, wow. Well, when you put it that way. You know what? I've actually come close in my day. I have a memory that as a teenager, I went to the training, which wasn't online. It was in person somewhere in Hamilton for a cutlery company. But I actually didn't get much further than that.
Okay, wait. Let me just guess.
Yeah.
Were you recruited by someone? Did you pay that person out of pocket for a bunch of cutlery, sell a little bit of cutlery, give a cut of those sales back to your recruiter, and then you went out and recruited someone to do the same? Because that, my friend, is the definition of a multi-level marketing scheme. And that means that you were like a 13-year-old in a cutlery MLM, which is hilarious.
I'm actually trying to recruit you right now, but I don't think I'm making progress. I do remember that the selling was going to be door to door and that people would get their knives like a little bit later. I may have purchased a demo set out of my own pocket, but their advertised hourly wage didn't really add up. So like any teenager, I just abandoned it. But I think you're asking me because one of your favorite companies, Tupperware, filed for bankruptcy this week.
Yes, it was a leading question. You got me. Yes. Well, you know Tupperware, at one point, a very storied American company that arrived with the space age post-World War II, and everyone was very enthusiastic about plastics, and managed to endure for decades. Here is an ad from the 80s.
Look at all the ways we keep it.
Come to a Tupperware party and see all the new ways you can lock in freshness.
Beans, greens, cheese, teas, potato, tomato, salami, pastrami. Jams keep jammier, hams keep hammier, cakes keep cakier, flakes keep flakier. Tupperware freshness, that's our promise. Look at all the ways we keep it.
Oh, my God. Okay. Now that I've heard hams keep hammier on a Globe and Mail podcast, I can retire.
Did you notice that line about come to a Tupperware party? That was the direct sales model that begat the MLM industry. Women recruiting women. It's always been mostly women to do direct sales in the home. It's social. There's a fun element and sometimes even games. And direct sales is what Tupperware was known for, and yet it's also what killed them. In the Chapter 11 filing, Tupperware and some of its subsidiaries wrote that direct sales was their quote-unquote weakness. They never quite figured out how to diversify their sales strategy.
Which is actually kind of crazy that they didn't use the internet to their advantage, right? Tupperware is such a strong brand. And MLMs have had a second life all over social media. Now the phrase is social selling, less than multi-level marketing. But anyone with Facebook or email has probably had a friend ping them about their side hustle, like come to my party for sex toys or come to my party for leggings. I went to a candle party once, I admit. It was actually kind of fun.
Candle party. No one ever invited me to a legging party or something like that. But despite Tupperware's official demise, according to the Direct Sales Association, which is the association for the direct selling industry in Canada, as of 2022, there are over 100 companies that are using this direct selling model in Canada, adding up to over $3 billion in annual sales. Those numbers might reflect a pandemic bump or teenagers that didn't turn back like me. It's a lot of cash. And honestly, I kind of do get the appeal, right? Like, what was the appeal for me? I could start earning money pretty fast. And with that low barrier to entry and just being able to start selling from your home, from your couch, through your social media accounts, you don't even have to leave the house instead of going door to door. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, but the other thing that the internet has done for MLMs is exposed its dark side, right? Like the internet giveth, the internet taketh away from the MLMs. The anti-MLM Reddit has 840,000 followers. TikTok is filled with stories, really some terrible stories about how the worst MLMs can be exploitative, cult-like, bankrupt people. So according to our guest, the vast majority of those who join an MLM, 99.7%, make no money or lose money and wind up with basements or their storage lockers filled with products that they can't sell.
Or knives that just aren't sharp enough anymore. We have with us today a leading voice on this wild world of MLMs, podcaster and author Jane Marie. If you're a podcast person, you've heard her fantastic investigative series, The Dream, where she spent a full season deep diving into MLMs. And she goes even deeper in her book called Selling the Dream, an expose that reveals how the scandal-plagued MLM industry just refuses to die. Jane Marie is a Peabody and Emmy Award-winning journalist. Welcome to Lately. Your great-grandmother was an Avon lady. You write about playing with the products as a little kid. Can you describe some of those memories for us?
Oh my gosh, so fun. We didn't get like full-size products. We got the ones that were like teeny tiny and came with your kit for going door to door and selling this stuff, like just little samples.
Yeah.
So we kept them all in a suitcase under the couch. And the lipsticks were like half the size of my thumb, like tiny. And they were so cute.
Polly Pocket?
Yeah, so tiny and cute and like a chiseled tip when they were brand new. I can smell it. As I talk about it, I can smell it. Like I can smell the Avon. Because they were like mainly a perfume company for a long time.
Yeah.
And everything they make has like perfume in it and it's so stinky.
Well, scent is so powerful for memory too. So many people are familiar with Avon. I had a woman in my neighborhood who was the Avon capital L lady. Why is it an MLM? What about it makes it an MLM?
So the recruiting basically makes it an MLM, that you get paid a higher commission based on the number of people in your downline. So the number of people you've recruited, and then the number of people that the people you've recruited have recruited, and then the number of people that the people that you've recruited have recruited. And that should keep going on and on. And if you're at the top of that triangle, more money flows up to you. The bulk of the money in the business is coming from in the business. The call's coming from the basement, essentially. And they make a lot of money from people signing up, but not necessarily from selling products.
One element that I really want to make sure I understand is this distinction between a pyramid scheme and MLM, just the difference, right? So the structures are similar, but the primary source of income is different.
I think that MLMs are pyramid schemes. I don't think there's a difference. MLMs, the industry and the lobbying here in the United States anyway, has gone a really long way to like be the ones who define what a pyramid scheme is. The MLM industry has worked with the FTC and others to say, this is what a pyramid scheme is, and therefore we're not one because we have a product. So in any of these schemes, you have to pay an initial fee, which gets you some sort of product and promotional materials, maybe some flyers, business cards, you get a website. It's usually under $500 because that allows companies to avoid franchise law. That's a whole other thing.
Oh, interesting.
But you start with a $500. You go out there, you realize nobody wants to buy your Amway soap because it's 3 times more expensive than what you can get at the grocery store. So you try to sell it for 2 or 3 months. And then you're like, well, this was stupid. And now I have a lot of product. I guess I'll just use the product up and quit trying to do this as a project. And there are 10 suckers right behind you ready to sign up. Those sign-up fees, and they also put these monthly targets for how much money you're supposed to be bringing in. Oftentimes people don't make any sales, but they'll put some sales on their own credit card in order to maintain their rank in the company.
Right. They'll buy from themselves to artificially inflate their sales.
Yes.
The global MLM market was valued at $201 billion in 2022, and it's expected to reach $329 billion by the end of 2030. Approximately 116 million people are involved in direct selling worldwide. What kind of person is most likely to get involved?
Okay, so by 2030, it's going to be $329 billion market. But market of what?
Yeah.
You know, like if no one's actually selling products and people are just signing up, like it's just a strange thing to have a statistic on. Like $329 billion of like just flushed hopes and dreams. Like what? It's so infuriating. It's so hard to parse out what's real and what's not in this world. There have been just a few studies about, you know, what type of people go for these schemes. And I have to say, I, in general, just think it's like people who believe in the American dream. People who have bought the idea that we live in a meritocracy, that hard work and determination and having a good attitude will equal money if you just keep your head down, you know? That self-improvement also improves your station in life. All of these things that were kind of hammered into us as children. Same with folks who are religious, and especially in any kind of religion that does proselytizing, like door-to-door winning souls, random strangers' souls. So Mormonism is like perfect because it's the same skill set, right? Like walking up to strangers and convincing them to join your club, essentially. And then this has been done in a study at a university. They had students come in and look at the income disclosure statements, where it's evident that in most MLMs anyway, under 1% of the people make like even $100 a year. And sometimes the income disclosure statement will have like at the top line, it'll be like, there's 10 people in the highest position here, and they each made $1 million last year. Well, yeah, they're the people that started the company, okay?
Yeah.
and their spouses and their children. There are certain folks who in this study looked at that income disclosure statement and went, I'm one of those. I'm one of the 1%. So I'm joining this and I'm going to be at the top of this thing through hard work and determination. And then there's other people who look at it and go like, why would I ever do that? That's a losing proposition. This is a joke. And I can picture myself being either person.
Yeah.
Just depending on the day and like how things are going in my life and, you know, how desperate I feel for money or just how excited I am about, you know, doing something new. I buy scratch off lotto tickets every once in a while. That's like a total waste of my money, but it's fun.
It's such a treat when you win $2 or $5. I love the sound that it makes at the checkout.
I have a $1 ticket sitting right behind me on the counter.
Don't lose that.
I won't.
So we think of women when we think of MLMs, I think most often. And I was wondering if you could walk us through the story of Jennifer, a social worker and mom from a small town in Michigan, your home state. Her story in both your podcast, The Dream, and your book, Selling the Dream, seems to exemplify why women in particular are drawn to these businesses. What was the pull for Jennifer?
So she was a social worker at the time Arbonne came into her life through one of her best friends. And at first it was like a lower stress job than being a social worker who worked on criminal cases having to do with child abuse. And like whether you're a social worker or just like a regular old mom, like those are stressful jobs. And the idea that you could instead be spending your time selling makeup to your girlfriends is pretty attractive, you know? I think that her main goal after the very beginning was really that kind of like fellowship. Having friends, having a goal that you need to meet every day. When I went to her house, like the number of notebooks that she has from her time, she was there for 8 years in Arbonne.
Oh, wow.
But that number of notebooks, perfectly designed, right? Like meticulous note-taking. Yeah, just binders and binders and binders of like handwritten notes. And I feel like that part of it, the industriousness and the feeling like you have a purpose, I think that's what drew her. And, you know, she stayed in long enough that she actually got a downline. I mean, 8 years is a heck of a long time for an MLM.
That's a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. She was really close to the top and still not making any money. But she got the car, you know. She still drives around in the Arbonne
That's right.
car.
A car that she mostly had to pay for, but was branded by them.
Yep. Yes. It's branded by them. You don't have a choice of car. So it has to be a white Mercedes. I think you can choose the model, but it has to be white and it says Arbonne on it. And she had to qualify for the loan herself. Like the rates of the loan were all based on her credit score and her husband's and their income. The way that the company pretends to give you a car is that if you reach really crazy sales goals every month, like you and your downline, I think it was something like $40,000 a month. If you can sell that much, they'll send you a check for $800.
Right.
But on a white Mercedes SUV in the States anyway, like that barely covers your insurance, let alone, you know, the payment on the car. It didn't come close for her.
So how did she get out after the 8 years? What would her notebook tell us?
She actually got influenced by a couple of people, honestly, also my podcast, but
Okay.
She got out only like 2 years ago. And so she sought out a cult deprogrammer, and she does group therapy with her and is really still in the process of deprogramming. I tend to agree with her and the people that she talks to that these are cults.
Okay.
And especially if you've been there for 8 years, it takes a lot of effort to undo the, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, the brainwashing that happens.
Well, you've gathered so many of these MLM stories, and we were curious, what's maybe the horror story, a particularly terrible outcome that might stick with you the most from some of your reporting? whose story just totally gutted you?
We had a caller episode where people called and left their stories on voicemail. And the one that it actually gives me goosebumps right now as I'm saying it. And it's not the most money anybody's lost. And it's not the most manipulated anybody's been. But as far as real life consequences, there was a woman who called in who has hid from her husband $25,000 of MLM debt. She's going to have to tell him eventually. But like, siphoning money off of your family's savings and not telling your spouse about that. I heard that more than a couple of times. But I know of someone who committed arson and embezzlement in order to pay off debt.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
I think something everyone wants to know or try to understand is how can these systems be legal in the first place?
I mean, in the United States, they're legal because of a court decision in the 70s. There was a case against Amway. The FTC at that time had gone after, like in the 60s and 70s, they were really cracking down on these companies, and they'd gone after a handful of them, like Holiday Magic and Costco and a few others. And they'd shut them down by proving they're a pyramid scheme. They eventually proved that the market was oversaturated with sellers. There really wasn't a market for any of the products. Manipulative tactics were being used to keep people, in the scheme. And so they got these companies shut down. And they did the exact same tactics with Amway and thought, okay, this is like the biggest one yet, but we're going to just argue this the way we've argued all the others, and Amway will go away. Well, Amway figured out a very American thing, which is just be friends with the president. Like, just be friends with all the people in government that would have any power over you. And they told the judge, look, we have all these rules we have to follow that they called the Amway rules, and they listed them. And then the judge was like, oh, well, then you're self-regulating, so you're fine. And now that's how the industry works. Just trust us. We're good.
Nothing to see here. I mean, I'm kind of a policy person, so I was really surprised to read about the connections between high-level politics and MLMs in your book, right? Both Ronald Reagan and Bill Clinton were huge advocates for MLMs despite lawsuits and well-documented critiques. And in your book, you did point out that Kamala Harris declined to investigate Herbalife when she was the Attorney General for California.
Yeah, this is the mysterious,
This is the spicy part.
Yeah. Her husband actually worked for the law firm that Herbalife used in that lawsuit. He wasn't on the team that argued that case, but he was at the same law firm.
How's that revelation sitting with you now, though? Like, you've known this for some time, you've documented it, it's in your book, and now this person could be the president of your country.
When you start really looking at the founders of MLMs, and if you were to look at politicians, they're all kind of similar. Like, I don't think there's any getting away from that fact that so many of the former MLM owners have been in the military, have sought office of all sorts. Like, multiple of them have run for governors. A lot of them are real cozy with folks in Washington, because the fiction that they're selling, it aligns, right, with like our democratic ideals, to say anybody can make it. And we're, again, a meritocracy, and just be good and work hard, and you will be rewarded. And I think that she is not that different from the folks who believe that in MLMs.
Something that stood out for me looking at some of the text from these companies was this promise of being independent as well, that you can be your own boss.
Yeah, girl boss.
Hashtag girl boss.
Yeah.
Do you think the fact that we're kind of all independent contractors now has made them sort of a little bit more popular? Like, in the age of a side hustle and the gig economy, do you situate MLMs as part of this moment in terms of how we work?
Completely. Yeah. And especially since the pandemic, a lot of MLMs being wellness products, there was a boom in participation during that time. Again, we were all just stuck at home. Why not get a side hustle that you can do from home, from your phone, and make a little extra money? I mean, it's not true, but if it were, again, I would sign up. If it was true, I would do it. And we'd have parties and it'd be fun. And
it would be fun. It would be fun. I mean, I think the fun element is an important part to recognize too, the social nature and also
I do too.
Etiquette almost. Like if someone invited me to their house and like put on a cute party and then oops, joke's on me, they're selling something. I mean, I probably wouldn't come back to the party or sign up to sell with them. I'd probably buy something because I'd feel like, oh, this is what we're supposed to do.
It's fun, though. I can't tell you how many of these parties I've been to. Like, way before I started researching this stuff, it's just part of the culture where I grew up.
Yeah.
One time I had a boyfriend and his mom invited me to a cooking party. And we get there and it's like 30 women. I'm the youngest one. They're all like in their 60s or up. And it's this giant, beautiful kitchen. And we're all doing different things for like a brunch kind of menu. I had to make lemon curd. Turns out it was a pampered chef party.
Oh.
So it was an MLM. But I didn't know that until like halfway into the event. And I was having a blast, except for when I got like a big bite of scallion raw that was like horrible. But it was so fun.
Well, there's the geographic element that you point to a lot in your book, right? The, finding people locally. But it seems like in a digital context, you and I might go to like an Instagram live or someone's like live streaming and maybe that's how we're connecting with them or other people, or maybe we, break Zoom.
That's how LuLaRoe got as big as it did.
Right. And it feels like influencer culture, those norms, always kind of has self-improvement or wellness kind of braided to it. Having, the right thoughts is kind of right in line with the MLM ethos. How do you think influencers have changed the game for MLMs?
I mean, it's widening the net of potential recruits, right? And I'm from Michigan, where Amway started. You used to have to first recruit your family and friends, the people nearest and dearest to you in your hometown. And then maybe like all of the women that work at my dad's dental office. And then maybe like a handful of women that are at my church. Like that's what I would do if I were actually signing up for an MLM in Owasso, Michigan. I would have made that list pre-social media. Post-social media, all I have to do is like make a post that's cool and have it go viral. And who knows who's going to be trapped with me. So I think that the idea early on in MLMs that you're selling to people you know and trust was a really fundamental part of the business model. But now with social media, you don't even have that safety net under you.
Right.
If there's any to have, you don't have that. These are complete strangers.
Let's talk about what else people are selling. You did a whole season about MLMs and life coaching. What's the connection there? How is life coaching an extension of the MLM psychology? There's intimacy, there's trust. It does feel like a logical place for MLMs to go. What do you make of this rising sector? So there comes a point in every MLM when you don't make money, right? You're like Jennifer, you've been in for years now and you're not making money. So they have to hook you with something else. Mm-hmm. And that something else is usually that you have a flaw. That's why you're not making money. It's never the fault of the product or the company. It's that something's wrong with you. And so we have this special event coming up that you can pay $1,000 for, and there'll be motivational speakers there. There will be life coaches there, essentially, who can help you up your business. And now some of the most popular people in multi-level marketing are also multi-level marketing coaches. They sell this extra package to people in MLMs, which once again is not a product to be sold. It's just the company selling you more of the company's stuff. Mm-hmm. You've mentioned the word cult a couple of times now, and you write in the book, to the untrained eye, their marketing makes some of these companies sound less like retailers of protein shakes or essential oils and more like life coaches, churches, or in some more extreme cases, cults. So are they cults? What's the coercive control element? That's the part where they convince you to stay in despite all evidence being that you are failing. That's where I feel like they cross over into a cult. First of all, it's your family now, your downline, that's your people. And you love them and you rope them into this, so you better stick with it. We have a special language. We have thought-stopping techniques. So that's very common in cults where there's phrases or explanations for things that really don't make sense, but like kind of stop the critical thought in your head about like what's really going on here. And then the coercive part is, you're failing,
your business isn't making any money, you have a problem. You're not trying hard enough. You're not being open to the world and possibilities enough. Your mindset's wrong. And I will sell you something that will change your mindset. And then it doesn't work because there's still no product to sell that anybody wants. That's where it gets really scary, is because people are just being bled dry on the idea that they're essentially failures, instead of it being that the makeup is like the worst. The MLM we joined was a makeup MLM, and I've never had, less comfortable makeup on my face. Like, it was all dry and stingy, and I hated it. But of course, if I was failing in that business, it wouldn't be because of that. It's got to be because I don't have a good attitude.
If only your attitude was better, maybe it wouldn't be such sticky makeup.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of makeup, the makeup brand, I think I'm going to mispronounce it, so you have to help me. Saint? S-E-I-N-T?
Saint.
Saint?
Saint. Mm-hmm.
Oh, come on. Come with an E? It's not fair. Saint with an E is transitioning or claiming to transition away from an MLM model. Have you been following this story? And if you have, can you tell us a bit about their restructuring?
Sure. So it's not just them. There's a handful. And one of the really big ones that just announced the same restructuring is Rodan and Fields.
Okay.
And they do, Proactive and all of that skincare stuff. They're one of the larger MLMs in the world.
Wait, Proactive is an MLM?
Yeah. The same women that run Rodan and Fields are the people that invented Proactive. I think that they just put that one product in stores. It's kind of a legitimizing tactic.
It seems so legit. Sorry to be so shocked.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, there's a number of these companies that are restructuring right now. I got to say, from the participants' perspective, I feel like it's devastating news for them. When you have been told for however many months or years you've been a part of these organizations, you've been told all of your hard work will pay off so long as you recruit. You've got to have people in a downline. If you don't have people in a downline, you won't succeed.
Right.
And so I've heard from a number of people who have spent years building up that downline, and they're just erasing it, wiping it out. So people who their lives kind of revolved around this are getting it taken away from them. Now, do I think it's right? Yes, I think it's right to restructure. I think it's a good PR move also. Mm-hmm. To say, actually, I'm noticing the tide's turning. People aren't as friendly to MLMs as they were in the early half of the 20th century. We should restructure. I think that's a good move. But I feel terrible for the people who have been, blood, sweat, and tears over years and losing money at this project.
There's a big anti-MLM movement on TikTok and the subreddit anti-MLM. You've been reporting in this space for a long time, and you're not alone. There was the Vice series about LuLaRoe. There's your amazing podcast, The Dream. John Oliver came at Herbalife pretty hard. And the internet just means there's so much more information out there than when your great-grandmother was selling Avon. We know more than ever, but is any of this having an effect?
This was the big question going into the first season of The Dream. When we started reporting, I think it was late 2017, and the show came out the following year. That was my number one question, is like, why isn't the true most common story the one we know? Like, why is the one we know that you can get a Ferrari by selling diet shakes, Why is that the dominant narrative when that doesn't happen to anyone? And I do look at it similar to the lottery, right? Like, you can be a multimillionaire. You just have to play. The common experience is losing $5 a week or whatever. But, they're not going to sell any lotto tickets advertising that. So I think though there are louder and louder voices on, I guess, my side of things as the time's gone on and more people are talking about it on social media, I think that's great. And I think as we see with like Jennifer, who we talked to for the book, social media really helped her get out of the MLM. Do I think, again, that that's the well-known dominant narrative in the communities where MLMs are still continuing to grow? Like, no. Gosh, it makes me just like so overwhelmed at the whole world. You would have to convince people that, again, this isn't a meritocracy. And that's not the fantasy that we all want to be living in. We all want to believe the things that the MLMs are promising, that hard work and a good attitude will pay off.
Well, and you've written about, and we've just spoken about how MLMs are almost a perfect expression of that American dream or lie at the core of that dream. And this word dream comes up again in your work, which is so often about scams and people being preyed upon. What does dream mean to you now?
Oh, gosh. Nightmare. No, I'm kidding. The dream to me means it is this like just collective fiction that we all live in. It's this fairy tale that we've made up about our freedoms and our purpose and our role in the world. And I'm talking about North Americans. But the places that the MLMs are expanding to, that's also being sold there. Like this every man for himself, essentially, but dress it up so it looks like industriousness. But really, it's just every man for himself. I don't think of it as the goal anymore after doing all this research. I don't think it's the dream. I'm hoping with my child I can introduce her to a different one.
You use the word overwhelm. Do you ever get sick of investigating this space or frustrated?
Yes, both. I get sick of it and frustrated with it. And it makes it hard for me to make a point, honestly. In the book, I end it with like, well, as soon as one MLM closes, another will open. And that's just after spending so many years in this world, that is my actual takeaway, is like, you'll expect somebody to not, accept $1 million from an MLM to speak at their annual conference. And then all of a sudden it's Bill Clinton. And it just keeps happening. I think in a fantasy world where the FTC and other government organizations completely shut down MLMs, that's not going to get rid of the crooks.
Is that your dream? Is that the fantasy? Is that what keeps you in it?
No, because I don't think it's a thing. What keeps me in it is it's literally about the people losing everything right now.
Yeah.
And that's all I can do. But I don't think that my work will change the personality types of people like Donald Trump, for example. You shut down one of his scams and he just starts another one, And yeah, that's how I look at the folks who want to be at the top of an MLM, who want to run these companies or start their company that way. And the majority of them, honestly, didn't have a product first. They had the business model in mind and knew that the business model was profitable and then slotted a product in. So anyway, yeah, I'm not hopeful. It does make me really exhausted. But then I hear from someone like Jennifer, who says, your podcast changed my life. I'm so much happier now. I'm so glad that my eyes are open to this, because for a long time, I felt icky about this. And I'm glad that I got out. So that's what I do it for.
Well, we're glad you're doing that work too. Jane, thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. And pain.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, are you sure? I hope you're feeling okay.
Yeah.
You've been listening to Lately, a Globe and Mail podcast. Our executive producer is Katrina Onstad. This episode is produced by Jay Cockburn and Andrea Varsany, and our sound designer is Cameron McIver. And I'm your host, Vas Bednar. In our show notes, you can subscribe to the Lately newsletter. That's where we unpack just a little more of the latest in business and technology. A new episode of Lately comes out every Friday, wherever you get your podcasts.